No, you're a good pig.
This is how I made a surgery cover-up kind of outfit for my friend's guinea pig that I was babysitting that had just had surgery on her nipple area. She had a lump removed and she was a little menace and was picking at her stitches. So we needed this cover-up to protect them so she wouldn't do it again. The first step was to cut the fabric into the right size. So it was about as... The length was about 30 centimeters to wrap around my guinea pig, modeled by my little crochet miso, and then about as long as you need it to be to cover up the surgery area. So this was about 30 centimeters by 15 to 20-ish, I think. And this is before I've added a hem. So keep that in mind. It will differ depending on your guinea pig. The type of fabric that I used is a cotton jersey that's left over from a shirt that I made, which I am wearing today. It was intentional. I did want to have matching outfits, but something with a really light stretch. Cotton's probably best because then it's going to be a bit more breathable for them than if you were to use polyester or something. So I just started by hemming all 4 edges because I know my girls love to nibble on things, so if there were any loose edges they would definitely pull them and the fabric would fray. So for the first edge, one of the long ones, I didn't bother folding it over twice and hemming it properly because I'm going to roll it over and sew it again in the next step. But for the other 3 edges, like this one, I folded it over twice so that there's no exposed edge on the fabric to fray. But for that first one, I only folded it over once because we're going to use that to make a channel for the elastic to go through, and that'll be around the neck hole. So here I'm doing the sides, and yeah, this is probably not the most entertaining right now, but just doing a zigzag stitch so that it can stretch, and making sure to backstitch at the start and the ends. But if your guinea pigs aren't nibblers or you don't have a sewing machine, honestly, the raw edge would probably be fine if you were going to try and do this by hand. Wouldn't be too big of a deal. I'm sure it would work. So now I'm going to fold over that first edge that we did where I didn't hem it properly, measuring against my definitely not anatomically correct guinea pig just to kind of show you where it should sit on her. So this is the neck. We folded it over. We want it to be wide enough to fit our elastic, and zigzag stitching on the edge to try and close that up. And then, what am I doing now? Making sure it fits on miso. Yeah, my fake miso. So you can see it kind of wraps around the whole body, but you could also do one that doesn't wrap around the whole body. So this elastic that I've got here is fold over elastic, so it's used for making underwear and things like that, but it's a really gentle elastic. It's got a really nice stretch to it, so it's not going to be painful for the pigs if they have it around their neck or around their body. So I cut about 10 centimeters, but I honestly think that was a bit too long. Miso managed to get out of it pretty quickly, and I think when I made them for Mable, they were a bit shorter than 10 centimeters, probably around 8 centimeters. So you're going to fold that in half and fold your fabric in half to find the middle of it, and then pin both edges of it to make a little loop just either side of the center of the fabric, and you're going to stitch that into place. So you can kind of see how I'm doing it in the video. It'll make a little leg hole basically. And the reason for this, instead of just cutting a hole through a sock, was so that their poop and wee doesn't get stuck. So this still covers up the abdomen while letting their legs and their bum not be covered up. When I was babysitting Mable, there were probably 4 or 5 editions of her cover-up before I found one that actually worked well. The first one that did work well was similar design to this, but it did kind of gather around her bum, so she had like a little collection of poo in it, which is just not sanitary. It's not ideal if they're going to be wearing this long term, you know. So now I'm just checking that it's going to fit on my anatomically incorrect guinea pig, but it also just shows you how it works. So that's going around the little legs, which is an actual nightmare to get on a pig in person. This is a 2-man job, be warned. You will see that later in the video. Anyway, the next step is to get some more elastic for the sides. So we're going to have some going through the channel you made in the top, but then also stitching some onto the bottom edge. Here I'm just measuring to kind of see how much I need to go around her body and have room to tie it in a knot while still being firm but not too firm. The recommended advice I saw was that you should be able to fit one finger underneath but not two. But I managed to, the one that I made for Mable, it was successful. I had 2 fingers underneath and she still couldn't get it off, so that was still pretty good. You definitely don't want it to be too tight on them because these guys are, obviously very sensitive. But they are also very good at wriggling and getting out of anything you put them in. She had wriggled out of the contraption the vet made for her before we even left the clinic. So now I'm just making sure to hem the edges of the elastic because the first one that I made for her, I put through the washing machine and didn't do this, and it was an absolute nightmare. It frayed, all of the edges frayed. There were little tiny bits of thread, elastic thread, all through my washing machine. Absolutely everywhere, and it was terrible. So definitely hem the edges. It doesn't matter about the ones that are attached to the fabric itself because the stitching holds that in place and keeps it the right shape. So now I'm measuring out the elastic to go around the neck and through that little channel that we made. So this one was about 50 or 60 centimeters, I think. It was enough to wrap around the neck twice. So to keep it super secure, you want to go through, it'll come out the top of the back of their neck, and then it'll wrap around their shoulder blades and then tie either in the front of the neck or at the back of their neck, depending on how long you've made it. So just remembering to hem those edges as well, fold it over once or twice and just keep it secure. Otherwise you will have a mess and it will be terrible. So now I've just grabbed a safety pin and I'm using that to guide the elastic through the channel that we made. Using a bigger safety pin tends to work best, but if you only have a little one, that will do the job as well. I definitely recommend using a safety pin though, because trying to do this on its own is a very painful experience. In theory, you could also just sew the elastic for the top onto the edges, but I find it more comfortable for the pigs if they have that freedom for it to move around a little. So now we're going to try putting it on. We've got my real Miso as the model, who isn't injured and loved to complain a little bit about this, but she was a very good girl and got lots of treats afterwards for helping. So you're going to start by trying to put the feet through the holes, the little elastic loops that you made, and it helps if you do have a really stretchy elastic. 1, because it's more comfortable for the pigs, but 2, so you can kind of stretch it and try and force their legs through. This is definitely a 2-man job. You need someone to hold the pig and someone to get them dressed. So I was putting her leg through, and then I was getting my husband to hold the finished leg once it was through, so she couldn't just kick it out immediately, which she still managed to do anyway. But that's okay. All right, she's in. Hold her foot. Hold it on her foot. Okay. Yep. So now her feet are in. We're just twisting her around. So he's supporting her front and her feet, and then moving her around so that I can tie on the back. So that tie on her bum is going to wrap around and go around her body twice. So it's going to come back up to tie over her back, over where the fold is, or where the joint is. So once again, you want to make sure it's firm but not too firm. So you can fit 1 or 2 fingers underneath, and that should be good. They want to be able to move but not wriggle out of it. Then I'm bringing this top one around and I'm twisting it over, wrapping it around her neck. Now, if you made it longer, you could bring it back around again. Because Miso isn't actually in need of this, I didn't want to put her through more unnecessary stress and make it tighter than it had to be. So she did end up crawling out of this as soon as I put it on her. But we just tied it in a little knot and put her legs back on because she managed to kick them off. And then she was all done. So good luck if you do end up making one of these. I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have during the process. Yeah, here she is. She was not pleased. Very not impressed with me, but here is the proof that she did get lots of lettuce afterwards as a little treat. Good luck!